The German health authorities have today reported a record 410 coronavirus-related deaths. It's a milestone which comes as the 16 state leaders are set to decide on stricter lockdown measures. They have reportedly agreed to extend coronavirus restrictions into December, with celebrations for holiday then able to take place. Now, new daily infections have leveled off, but Germany's caseload remains stubbornly high.
The pressure is on for the German government to ease restrictions for the most important time of the year for many, Christmas celebrations. Right now, Berlin's Gendarmenmarkt Square would usually be packed with people enjoying the Christmas market. It's been cancelled. People will be allowed to gather at home for Christmas, but in smaller groups. Still, many accept the reality that this year is different.
There's going to be naturally some opposition. It's natural, it's going to happen, but it is what it is. You know, there's no policy that's ever going to be 100% approved by the people.
I don't understand why restriction would be eased for Christmas. Perhaps one should stick to them. But I also see what happens with people when they're lonely and unhappy. So I can't say much about it, but I just talk about it because I also see how it is in hospitals. That's where I work. Yes, it's sad not to celebrate Christmas as usual, but how else? The measures taken are important and necessary. And there's always Skype, so we'll see. The decision on Christmas is expected to be confirmed Wednesday following talks between state premiers and Chancellor Angela Merkel. The overall situation remains critical. We have high expectations as a parliamentary group. Until now, we have begun to see a short trend of lower figures in terms of infections, which means the exponential growth could be stopped. But that's not enough. We need lower figures, especially for Christmas. Christmas isn't the only celebration that's on the line. Many say that the much-loved tradition of New Year's Eve fireworks needs to be reined in. But a nationwide ban on fireworks sales does not appear to be on the cards.
And DW's Emanuela Schaz is on the story. She joins us from Berlin. How necessary is the extension of tough measures?
Well, Sarah, if you look at the cases on Tuesday, Germany recorded its highest number of daily deaths with more than 400 new deaths and over 1,800,000 new infections in a single day. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we count almost 1 million cases overall and almost 1,500,000 deaths. Of course, now the number of cases plateaued. There's no longer an exponential growth, but it is still far from being an ideal situation. Here we definitely can't say that the pandemic is under control. That being said, if you compare the situation in Germany with that of other countries, well, Germany still fares relatively well in comparison. Hospitals are not overwhelmed, for example. And if you look at the trends for daily new COVID-19 infections per million inhabitants, we can see that there's still an exponential growth in the US, for example, where Germany's figures after a mild summer seem to plateau.
But still, I mean, we see very clearly on that graph there, the numbers are going up. And it is for that reason that Chancellor Angela Merkel has been calling for even stricter measures. But she's getting some pushback from the states. Talk with us a little bit about that and whether they might find some common ground.
Yeah, Angela Merkel has advocated for tougher restrictions throughout, but she does have to find a common line with her state premiers. She backed their proposal drafted on Monday. According to that draft, if it's adopted today, we could see additional measures in areas where there's a high rate of infection. For example, we could see tighter curbs on gatherings. Up until now, up to 10 people from 2 different households could meet. That could be reduced to 5 people. And as things stand, current measures will be extended, with shops remaining open, but restaurants, bars, fitness studios remaining closed for now until at least December the 20th.
Emanuela, Christmas, we know, a very important holiday, you know, religiously, culturally for many Germans. What could a COVID Christmas look like?
Well, as things stand, exceptions to those restrictions are on the cards for Christmas. Members of one household will be allowed to meet with up to 10 other people from other households from December 23rd until the very beginning of January. Some people are relieved. Others I talked to over the last few days, including medical personnel, don't quite understand why there would be such an exception. In any case, people will be encouraged to self-isolate before and after the celebrations. Schools might also break up a few days earlier, as early as mid-December. Religious ceremonies will be allowed, and also breaking with a long-standing tradition on New Year's Eve, and in a bid to avoid public gatherings, there will be no public fireworks this year.
Emmanuel Chaz with The View from Berlin. Thank you. Let's have a look now at some other developments in the coronavirus pandemic. France is relaxing its coronavirus restrictions following a drop in new infections. Non-essential shops, movie theaters, and museums will gradually reopen, but large gatherings will remain banned. Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, has eased social distancing measures and allowed companies to bring employees back to work after 3 weeks without a locally transmitted case. And in the U.S., a restaurant dining ban comes into effect today in Los Angeles, the country's second biggest city. The 3-week order comes as the state of California faces a record number of infections. Well, one European country, Finland, has managed to keep its new coronavirus infection rates under reasonable control. Restaurants and bars are open for business and stores never closed. There are few local restrictions, but there are fairly tight rules aimed at keeping the virus outside its borders.
How has Finland managed to keep the coronavirus at bay during this second wave? It's not due to harsh restrictions on citizens, because there aren't any. Masks are recommended but not required in most places. All stores are open. Restaurants and bars are too, although orders for alcohol end at 11 p.m. Pasi Pohjola is director of the National Coronavirus Strategy. He explains it relies on a sense of personal responsibility. Mere recommendations wouldn't work everywhere, but here they do.
Finns are quite obedient in the sense that when they are suggested to kind of maintain distance and avoid a lot of gatherings and a lot of parties, many people intend to work with the way it is suggested.
Pohjola says many Finns are working from home and that surveys show in-person social contacts have been cut by 2/3.
So while the situation in Finland is very good at the moment compared with the rest of Europe, health authorities warn that this requires constant vigilance. So while they are not making mask wearing mandatory, they put up friendly reminders like this one on City Hall that it's a very good idea if Finns want to maintain this way of life.
But the number of new cases has started to rise, so now the government has ordered students over 12 to wear masks in school and limited the size of social gatherings in the Helsinki area to 20 people. It also extended until at least mid-December a ban on all non-essential travel into the country. Finnish officials say in the summer, half of new coronavirus infections came from abroad. That's dropped to 6% now that tourists aren't allowed in. The European Union is pressing governments to restore open borders as soon as possible. Pohjola says Finland is grappling with whether it can do that and stay safe.
That is something that looking a little bit worried, well, a little bit terrified also that we have to have a kind of a good model to work with the border issues to maintain the situation here in Finland.
One government proposal is that travel restrictions could be eased by making it mandatory to be tested on arrival. Timo Aronkytte is deputy mayor of Vantaa, where the airport is located, and he's responsible for security there. He says his city doesn't have enough medical professionals to carry this out.
We have communicated to the government that if you lift restrictions and if you make the law that forces our staff to move over to the airport, the situation is so that we cannot treat our Finnish people anymore so well that we would like to.
Difficult decisions lie ahead for Finland as it tries to figure out how to continue blocking the virus, but not visitors.